Welcome to the first time Mary has ever danced during the intro music. Ever. If you have the video feed, you need to see this.
That's the most I've ever seen Mary dance ever.
This is Woodworking is Bullshit, your favorite podcast all about creativity, art, and the philosophy behind design. I'm your host, Paul Jasper, scientist by day, woodworker by night, and I'm joined with Erik Curtis, fine furniture maker and content creator, and Mary Tisai, contemporary furniture maker by night and UX designer by day. Today, we have a very special guest joining us on today's episode. Her name's Jack Thomas. Jack is an artist, a fellow artist, also very clearly an educator, a multimedia documentarian, and a creativity coach. And underlying, everything she's done in her career and everything I can tell about Jack, and she's got a bachelor's and a master's of fine art, and she's in this uncomfortable position of listening to me brag about her while we stare at each other through the video. Underlying all of her, I think, efforts, and if I could be so bold as to give my opinion, is number one, a deep, deep love of art. That goes without saying, that goes without question. And number two, I've noticed a huge curiosity, a curiosity to understand art, to understand what art is capable of, to understand what governs our perceptions of art, and how art intersects with society in the most unpredictable and brilliant ways. And Jack, I think, everything I've heard from you, tells the story better than I can talk about it. So let me tell you how we met Jack. Okay. So, in our third episode, I think it was Art versus Craft.
So.
Or
might have been
it
second.
Was early on.
Second, maybe?
Yeah. Early on. We did an episode of Art versus Craft. And, the three of us, we do the best we can. Like, we just bring it, every week. And, none of us are educators in, the art field. And we just, bring these topics up and speak to them as best we can. Well, Jack was sufficiently moved about this topic that she's like, I love this. And she did a series of reaction videos to our episode. And she published them on Instagram. They were amazing. She published them on Instagram. There are 6 of them. And I've sent them to many, many people. Her reaction videos were better than the episode. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No. I've sent those videos to people and be like, don't even listen to our episode.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys. No way.
So Jack, we were so blown away at your deep thinking and the breadth at which you thought about these topics and the history that you brought to them to speak. Like, we were so blown away that we were like, from that day, we're like, we have to have her on an episode. And that was it. So, by the way, for any listeners out there who want to make reaction vids to our episodes, that's all it takes to get on it.
You have to be brilliant. That, Paul. Don't encourage that.
You have to be brilliant and give a series of amazing reaction videos, better than the episode itself. No small task. So, Jack, thank you for being on tonight's episode. We really appreciate having you.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, and thank you in advance for writing the book jacket description for my memoir. I really appreciate that.
Your memoir?
Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I only charge a little bit, but I'm hoping to increase the price point, which brings up to
you better.
Oh, what a transition!
Oh my God!
You know what makes the transition smooth is when you acknowledge how smooth the transition was.
Yeah. And the little pistoles after. Yeah. Okay, so as everyone knows, we always lead with a question, and we thought Jack could speak to this topic wonderfully. So, think of Jack today as a fourth host who's going to push and prod and tear the fabric of everything we discuss. Today, I think, applies to pretty much everyone who sells anything, and that is, how do you increase your price point, and what are the moral and ethical implications of doing so? So we're going to take this in 2 pieces. We're going to say, well, first, how do you establish price point? How do you increase price point? What are some ways you've used to increase your price point, and have they worked? And then that's going to be the body of, I think, what we discuss. And then towards the end, Eric and I are going to have a little Wibs debate club about whether it's ethical to do so.
We bringing it back, baby.
Let's hope there's no long-standing grudges.
Can I ask right off the jump, Jack, when you went to art education school, school. So was your intention from the beginning to be a full-time artist?
No.
Or like young, like 20-year-old Jack, like what was the dream?
Do any 20-year-olds have dreams that really follow through? I guess kids do these days. I don't know.
I thought you were going to say, do any 20-year-olds have dreams? And I was a little sad for you.
Oh! Let us not tease our young friends.
They're dreaming, but it's not about art, Eric.
Yes, no.
Fair.
No. I went to a liberal arts school for undergrad, not a fine art school, and I had no clue what I was going to do. I ended up in a first-year program with this really famous photographer named Pradeep Malde, and it just made such an impression on me that I declared a major for art and went in that direction. It was not really the intention to begin with. I was actually going to go to military school. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What?
We have to dive into that at some point.
After show.
But
okay.
Yeah. Oh, that is an after show.
Uh-huh.
But so I guess I'm curious if we're talking about pricing, like I know all three of us have struggled with pricing many a times. This is a conversation we still regularly have. We'll still like Paul and I will still be like, how much do I fucking charge for this box? Like I don't know.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not making and selling a lot of work at this point in your career?
That is correct. My day job has taken over because I launched a business this year as an instructional designer, designing online courses for fancy influencers like you guys and healthcare people and things like that. So not a lot of art right now. My printing press is laying pretty fallow. But when I was regularly making work, I was really, really privileged because printmakers kind of have a pricing formula. And you guys don't have that,
really?
I think. Oh, yeah.
No, it's the Wild West out here. Yeah, how do you figure that out?
Wow. I mean,
Square inch?
No. So here's the formula for printmakers. And I told all my students this, and it works out until you get famous enough to break the mold. So you take the cost of your materials, you multiply it by 2, then you decide what your hourly rate is, how much you want to get paid per hour. You pay yourself that much per hour for however many hours it takes you to make this print, whether you're carving a wood block and then printing on the paper and drying the edition and signing things, whatever. And then you add those numbers together. So you have materials times 2 plus your hourly rate times the number of hours that you worked. Then you take that number and divide it by the number of prints that you have in an edition. And that's the price per print. But that only works with editioned work.
So let me get this straight. So if Jack leaves the train station headed east at 8 miles an hour.
Exactly.
Like,
17 apples.
Eric,
17 apples.
Eric, that's a calculus problem you were just giving. That's like a derivative. It is. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, no, that was very much. So the way I learned. So but is that the formula you followed when you started making things and you were like, I'm going to figure out what my price point is?
Yeah, because that's what my professors told me, and so I followed it. But then once you kind of grow up and you get famous a little bit, even you can charge more than that, and it also depends on where you're selling.
Is that a formula only because you're creating a lot of one thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
That's why I don't envy you guys.
I've heard similar formulas for woodworking is like materials times your hourly rate times some profit margin. Something like some formula like that.
There are
but not
formulas
divided by the number of prints, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are formulas. Like in cabinetry, there is a formula per linear foot, and everybody has a different number. But whatever. Say a person is charging $1,500 a linear foot, and you're like, okay, like how long is the cabinet? How many? Et cetera, done. In the furniture world, what I was taught for individual objects is if the price of materials is more than 25% of the final cost of the object, you're losing money. If it's around 10%, that's ideal. Mm-hmm. And usually it ends up being somewhere around 15 to 20%.
That's interesting, Eric.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it.
Yeah, no, it's a terrible way to price things out because you could make a thing. So I know we're going to get into this later, but the scale of objects matters.
Okay.
All right. No.
Shut up, Eric.
Come on.
He said, shut up.
So question. So Jack, you had a formula for pricing. Like Mary, when you first sold your first thing, how did you price it?
Really poorly. I think, honestly, I think I went on like Etsy and saw around
Yes.
average what was there. And then because I lived in the Bay Area, I was like, I'm going to jack that up a little bit. I could have
Okay.
jacked it up like 4 times and it would have been fine, but I jacked it up a little bit because it's well-to-do people. But it's like, seeing online, comparing what's, yeah.
What
Well,
year
hey,
was
hold
that?
on now. What was that?
That's
What?
interesting. Mary, say that again, because it was well-to-do people, which brings up the
Yes.
ethics and moral considerations of how we price. Like, if you know who your
Yeah.
audience is, like,
Oh,
all right, we'll get to that. Mary's already
yeah, she's chomping
skating
at the
on.
bit.
Yes. Okay. So for
Wait, what was
me,
your question?
I was wondering. Sorry, Paul. Hold on. I was
It's
wondering what year that was because,
Oh.
like, the first object that I made that I charged somebody for, I'm pretty sure Etsy didn't exist yet. So, and I'm sure there were ways to figure out what the market was, but I didn't have those resources that I would look at first nowadays.
The first time I ever had like a formal commission and not just for a friend or family was 2017.
Okay. Sorry, Paul, go on.
Oh, for me, so I didn't know how to price things originally, and I made a series of 6 tea boxes. I'll never forget this, and they were highly decorative on the inside. They had like checkerboard dividers and all this stuff. And I put the first one for sale.
Those.
Do you remember? I put
Yeah,
the first
those were
one
the
for
first
sale on
ones
Instagram.
you ever put up?
Yeah, I put the first one for sale on
Damn.
Instagram at $400. It sold instantly in like two minutes. There was someone who's like, I'll take it. And I was like, ooh, maybe I underpriced that. I don't know. Okay, so the second one I put for $450. Also sold in under 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, geez. Economic principles would tell you that they should not sell instantly. Then I put the third one at $550. So it's 400, $450. I put it up to $550. It took about a week. And I was like, okay, I think we're reaching kind of the tipping point of my particular audience, what they'll accept. And then I put the next one for $650. And it sat for a month or more. And I eventually sold it to a previous customer for $450 after a month or two. And that was my first, sort of dipping the toe into this idea of making multiples of something and just kind of experimenting with price point to see what the market will bear. That's how and for me, it's always been an evolution. I start with a particular price point based on my other objects now. But if you don't have other objects, where do you start?
Yeah,
and that's sort of what we're talking about.
Yeah. That's
but
the tricky part.
Now I have a body of work that I know, like, I could start here and I see how well it does. And if it doesn't sell for 2 years, I might drop the price, or or I might just let it sit. Or if it sells immediately, I might think, oh, that's interesting. Anyway, that was my approach. So now, Jack, you when we were circulating notes about today's show, you wrote something very specific, and I want to address this. So, and I'm going to let you speak to it now. I'm going to read it first, and I'm going to let you speak to it. A warning or a plea to hobbyists and to folks who are just starting to be, being skilled enough to sell their work. Do not sell your work at cutthroat low prices. We know it feels good to get those sales and to feel that validation. But when you do that, you devalue the whole market. So, Jack, why don't you tell us, what that is about?
Yeah, for sure. Because up until this point, I feel like we've been having sort of like academic math speak about things, but really, the way that I feel about this is just 100% fucking attitude. Like it is a matter of how good you are and where you're going to sell, what the venue is that you're selling in, what the prices are like in that venue. Like to your point, Mary, like, you go on Etsy, you look and you see what the sort of median for something is and how much you think you can get for it. But if you're one of those folks that's just starting out and you're a hobbyist, it's important for you to get validation. You need that to go on, right? We all need that to keep going, even at past the beginner points of our careers. But let's say that you are you're a new woodworker, you're a hobbyist, and you join like one of these sort of member craft galleries. Maybe the average price for, let's say, a tea box in there is $450. If you're like, I'm just a hobbyist and my work's not quite as good, I'm going to price this for $200. Screw you. You have just brought down the entire value, the whole vibe of the work that's in that gallery, because now people are looking at your work going, oh, well, this is $200. This jerk over here priced this for $450, right? And the quality will speak for itself sometimes, but you don't want to do that. It's also devaluing yourself, frankly. If you're not ready to charge big boy prices, then do not go to big boy venues to sell.
Well, that I think is the key point, right? Because early on, like I'll tell you, the first piece I ever got commissioned to do was a bookshelf. It was my senior year of college. It was 2008, and I charged him $200 for like a sizable bookshelf, and I ended up spending about $250 on wood. And then had to buy the router and the tools and everything else to do the thing and the
I wish people could hear my face right now.
We heard the exhale. But like that, I had no idea. I didn't know what it would cost. So I just like threw out a number. And there's also the emotional aspect of I'm terrified to ask you for more money because money is expensive. Like there's a t-shirt in there. But like there is the thing of like, I couldn't comprehend spending $200 on a bookshelf. Like I was just getting free shit off of like Facebook Marketplace, even though it didn't exist yet, Craigslist at the time. So to ask for that amount of money for a thing was, not even like anxiety is not the right word. Like I felt guilty about it. And consequently, like to your point, there was no chance in hell I was going to submit my work to a gallery to get laughed out of that fucking room. No way that was going to happen. So I understand what you're saying, that like, if you're going to try to get into the room with the big boys, the big girls, then you need to have an understanding of how, or at least a baseline understanding of how that economy works, so that you're not devaluing other people's work, because it is a communal effort. But there's no way to know that without fucking it up first.
Oh, you will. Everybody does, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eric, I was following where you were. It's like when you first start out, you don't know that. You just want to sell a thing, and you don't care about the community and devaluing because you're not part of it. You're just some schmo, making shit for the first time, thinking, would someone pay for this? And you're just happy that it's sold. You don't even care about the money sometimes.
A lot of the time. Yeah. It's just, somebody covered the materials for this piece and I got to learn a thing.
Well, Jack, now that I'm in the field, I do know what you're talking about. And I think it's that vantage point takes years to feel, to be in the community and see, I see what you're talking about now. But when you're first starting out, I didn't see it. So it's sort of a developmental cycle.
Yeah, and sometimes, hopefully, you have people who are kind enough to like nudge you in the right direction without, really calling you out too hard. So yeah, I wish that for everybody.
It's funny you say about people, in the community who help you. So we're now going to switch gears to how do we increase? We talked already about how you set the initial price point, and there's a variety of methods, like whether it's eBay or comparison, or you ask people, or you guess, or you fuck it up like Eric did. And, or you have a formula. There's plenty of ways, but how do we increase? This is the crux of today's episode. How do we increase the price point of what we sell? And I'm going to start by saying the first thing that came to my mind was better marketing. The size of the audience, the bigger your audience, the more people who want to buy your shit, the more you can ask for it. Because as you ask more and more money, you whittle down the buying market smaller and smaller. So obviously it's a numbers game. If you start at 100 people and you whittle it down versus if you start at 1 million people and you whittle it down. So I'm going to start by saying better marketing, sales, marketing, reputation, prestige, higher visibility, better photography and videos, like everything social media. That was my first. That was the first thing that occurred to me.
I agree with everything you just said, with the caveat that everything that you just said takes time to develop those skills or gather the resources to pay people who have those skills. Bingo. And I think this is a dangerous thing, right? Because we can come on here and we go, just make better shit. And then like how? or like just pay somebody to photograph your work better, or just pay $10,000 to get into, New York Home Builders show. And then you'll have people. Yeah, of course you will. But if you don't have that capital to expend to grow, like it's an incremental process, I
Erik,
think that's an important thing to note.
Right now, I'm picturing you wearing that T-shirt that Paris Hilton wore that said "Stop being poor," and also it's like way too small for you. Because that's what this sounds like. I did not know
where you were going with that, but I appreciate how you close it.
Yes, just
you do have a close resemblance to Paris Hilton. Yeah, you do say that's hot all the time.
You do actually.
But yeah, I mean, that's what it can feel like, and I, even from my perspective, I'm looking at you guys, going, your audiences are huge. The amount of money that you can spend to have teams to work on these things is massive. How does somebody who is beyond the hobbyist level, but not quite there yet, help raise their own prices when they don't have access to these, like, teams of influencer quality of videographers and things like that?
Erik, how do you afford your videographer?
Well, so I guess this was my point. So I was coming from the perspective of I can't. So I've developed those skills over the years. Like it's been, I made the decision to be a professional woodworker in 2008, maybe 2007, and I think some folks would consider me successful within the last couple of years. So it's, 15, 18 years of learning how to make things, learning how to design things. Then I had to learn how to photograph those things. Then I had to learn how social media works. Then I had to learn how to make videos so that more people would engage with my videos on social media, so that more people would see my work. And at the same time, I'm expending capital out of my own pocket, slowly growing a business over years, going to trade shows, going to art shows, going to do residencies so that I can meet other very successful artists who can teach me how to be better at the thing that I need to know. So it takes a long time to develop those skills. Some people are lucky enough to have the resources to invest in their business up front. I think the majority of us have not zero resources, but limited resources, realistically. And like the economy, like shit is expensive now. Like you're not spending all of your spare money on your woodworking habit because like groceries cost twice as much as they did 4 years ago. That's the reality of it. The fucking eggs.
It's the eggs. My eggs are free except for the food. I have to provide the chickens. Fair enough. It's like $60 an egg. But besides that, Erik, Mary, and Jack, I think are all like, we had to figure it out ourselves because obviously we don't have that kind of.
Well, that's amazing. You guys, you make it look like you make it look like you have an entire team. I think that's the perception that maybe some folks have.
You're meeting 3 entire teams right now.
What I wouldn't give to have a team.
I love to see behind the veil. I mean, this is great. I think that it probably is going to make everybody listening feel better too, because you guys do look like you have it so polished and so figured out. And so the question of like how to raise your prices and how to charge more, some people before this moment in the show might have been scoffing and going, well, you just have a team like Erik has.
That dick has a whole Netflix show team.
I got a whole team on Netflix.
Exactly.
That team spent 14 hours on Friday with me editing next week's YouTube video. So, like that's just how it goes. You're running a small business. You have to do the thing. This is why, coming back to price point and selling things, like my clients sometimes get, I don't want to say frustrated. They are incredibly patient with me, but I think their understanding dwindles from time to time, because like the client I'm currently working with, this piece is very nearly finished. I'm hoping to deliver it either just before or just after Christmas. And they've been waiting on this piece for 1.5 years now, a little more than 1.5 years. And It's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I do everything. So it's going to take that amount of time, and also the reality is, making objects is not the most profitable part of my business at this point. So like, I gotta pay my bills. If I charged you 5 times as much, then I would be able to prioritize this piece more.
I think
Fair.
we all wish we could price things as though our clients knew how fucking hard it is to make this
Yeah.
stuff, but they
Yeah.
don't.
They
They
don't.
don't. That was a big wake up call for me. They can
Yeah.
appreciate it and see how beautiful it is, but they don't place the same sentimental value on what it took to make it as we do.
Jack,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's a failure on our parts to show them.
No, they don't care.
No,
They don't care.
I don't know.
I love
you're
love
right.
how
Some
fast
people
you were
don't
with that answer.
No,
because
well,
it's true.
It's true. It is true. And Paul, I don't mean to. I don't want to like totally, railroad your opinion on that. I think
No,
that
please do.
Eric, do not encourage me. Do not encourage me.
Eric!
I don't need it. I think that there are clients who care about the heirloom nature of a given process, and they care about the sort of sexiness of woodworking and the finer points of it, but they don't care, okay, I have got to cut this dovetail joint exactly perfectly. I'm using this Japanese saw to like shave this off and block. They don't care about those things, and those are the things that take time, and time is money. They can only care so much because they only know so much.
I like it. I like it. Even when you shut me down, I like it. That's great. So, what actually plays to a lot of hobbyist strengths is skill sets in other areas. Like Mary, you have an incredible skill set in video editing, video record. Like you are armed to the teeth in that because of your day job. So that, in theory, you can pivot to those things around your woodworking life and do them well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's like a very fortunate position to be in, which I think the majority of folks can't unfortunately relate to. But yeah, I get to play around with cameras and lenses, and I think I have a pretty good eye because I'm a designer, and I will, like, when I curate my page, actually I've gotten a lot of comments recently from folks like, oh yeah, your page stands out because it's like a very specific brand of you, and like the kind of thing that you post is very, you can tell it's like specifically curated. So that's, I don't know, not everyone can do that. It's a lot of time and effort, and it is expensive learning, and like both money and time wise, it takes so much time to learn what good video is, or you look like you're about to say something to
Well,
me.
it is expensive. You're exactly right. Like I'm not going to argue that, but my point was going to be, well, woodworking is fucking expensive.
Yeah, it's
Like,
all
and
expensive, and so much
it's
time to
expensive.
learn.
Yeah.
And then you realize making the object is only a small part of the whole sales cycle story.
Yep.
Then there's the marketing and the sales and the branding and the logo and the customer relations.
And again, like the exorbitant amount that you spend to go to shows to get yourself in front of that audience, or then again, you're going the social media route. Okay, so now I'm going to decide to invest in Instagram and YouTube. Those are the two most marketable places. TikTok, sure, but it's a younger audience, and we're talking about people who have expendable income who can buy your art. So now I have to buy a new phone to make sure my phone has the highest quality image possible. I have to buy equipment and lighting so that I can learn how to photograph, probably buy in a DSLR. Now I got to buy a higher end DSLR so that I can make video on it. So I'm already $5,000 deep in just equipment before I even know how to fucking use it.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between that and spending that money on, say, a $10,000 booth at the New York Craft Show?
I hear you.
I mean, for people who aren't in your position. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mary.
Well, I was just going to ask, for the people who, your clients who you also make the video of the piece, does that add at all to the value? Like, do they?
It doesn't add to what I charge, but it definitely
But do they like the fact that there's a video that?
Oh, the majority of my clients find me through social media at this point.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. But like, do you think that, so you wouldn't charge more if you didn't make a video?
Or charge
I wouldn't charge.
Or less, sorry, yes.
Yeah. No, the video, so I admit that I'm odd in that, like, the money aspect of it is not the most important aspect of it to me. And that's not, I'm very aware of how that sounds like coming out of my mouth, but it's not from a perspective of I have money so I don't have to care, because even when I like really, really didn't have money, it was, I care more about the object, and I will figure out how to pay my bills. I would rather have a job and be able to make the best object I can. And so part of the reason I am stopping taking commissions is because the limitations they're now placing on me and the stress they're placing on me because I haven't increased my prices substantially is starting to be a drain.
I see. Okay.
But even like before I was making videos, I like the videos are just the thing that pays the bill that allows me to make objects. They are vehicle to an end.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So I wanted to get through this. That's super interesting, Eric. I'm not cutting you off by any means, but how do we increase price point? I want to come back to that because we've been spiraling, all over the place. So better marketing, size of audience. If you can grow a big audience, you can ask a lot of money for it, period. Right. Number two, Jack, you contributed this one. Does it matter where you sell? Can you talk about how that impacts this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does matter where you sell, and social media has kind of turned things upside down with that. But if we think about mostly like IRL, in-person selling for just a second, if you are selling like, let's say at a seasonal craft market, Black Friday is upon us and Christmas markets are nigh, right? So people are going to be selling tons of things at craft markets with pop-up, easy up tents. But then there are also people who are selling out of collective craft and makers markets, like the one that we talked about earlier. You kind of join a gallery, you're part of a gallery with other artists. That's a different tier of pricing and definitely higher, I would argue. And then if you have a physical shop, if someone comes into your physical shop, that carries a certain authority, and psychologically they understand that you have this overhead. That allows you to charge more for something. And then way, way, way up there is selling in a gallery. And this, I think, would go for woodworking as much as anything that I do or teach. If you're selling in a gallery, things are going to be extra high, not just for the prestige of being in the gallery, but also because the gallerist is taking a cut, of that thing. And then, at least for me, Eric, it sounds like this might not be the case for you, but when I do a commission, I charge the fuck out of it because I do not like doing them. And they are usually for very, very rich people who I know can afford it, And so I think it does matter where you're selling, and there is a tier structure to that. And you have to pay attention to what the prices are in those places.
Oh my God, Jack. Is this like, how do you...
That's called knowledge and experience right there.
Jesus Christ. Like the way you rattle that off so effortlessly.
Yeah.
Look, I spent a long time teaching really, really meek college kids to sack up and have the confidence that they deserve to have. So that's half the job of being a college professor. It's half technical instruction and half existential therapy.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
I mean, to that point exactly, when there's a blanket chest that I made when I was in school, and the first show I ever did, and this is directly related to not only like being a college professor and teaching people how to sack up. That's her quote, not mine.
I was just laughing about that. I was shutting him off of my laugh. I just kept saying "sack up" in the back of my head, and then you said it
guys,
again.
There's so many T-shirts already this episode.
I wear a size small,
but also to the point of like your audience matters, right? I made a blanket chest when I was in school, and I still have it. The first.
One back there?
I like how you looked over your shoulder.
You have one
yeah,
in
it's
your
that
room.
one back there. But that room is dark. You can't see it anyway. So I took that to the first show I ever did after school, and it was a craft show, right? It's like outdoors, intense. People are selling spoons and cutting boards and leather, goods and whatnot. And I priced it at $3,000, and nobody was interested. One person asked how much it cost, and I told him the price, and he literally laughed in my face, like audibly was like, "Ha!" And I was like, "Well, cool, bro." Maybe a year later, no, it was a real dick move.
Oh my God.
A year later or so, I did the Philly Furniture Show, and in the meantime, I had spoken to my teacher. And he basically reamed me out for charging $3,000. He was like, yeah. He told me to sack the fuck up. And he was like, no less than $4,500. And so that's what I listed it at the show. And multiple people were genuinely interested. And I don't think it's the increase in the price point. It was just a different clientele. In the context of a craft show, that piece made no sense because people were going there expecting to spend $20, $50, $100. And then somebody's like, give me $3,000 for a giant oak blanket chest. And they were like, why? What?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the context of the Philly Furniture Show, where people are selling pieces for $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, and they're selling home goods that you're investing in and bringing into your house for the next 50 years, it made complete sense.
All right. So we have better marketing, grow your audience, number one. Where you sell, number two. That's clear. Eric, your anecdote really put the exclamation point on that. That was excellent. Number three, make a better product. How about that? Improve your skills. Improve your skills. Sack up. Make a better, make a better product with more complexity, or build things have a better price point. A dining room table has a better price point than an end table, or a built-in for some reason because it's part of the house has a higher price point than something that can be moved. So build a better product. Have you done that in your journeys trying to increase price point?
Now, but when we say better, do we really mean better, or do we just mean more expensive?
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Mary loves this. How do you define better? Like for me, my early tea boxes were a little bit crude. And since then, they've become more refined. Like the proportions have been nicer. The wood is nicer. The wood is.
But are they better?
Well, it depends. It's on the eye of the beholder. Sure, let's But I mean, we could argue.
When she says it, you're like, "That's a great point." But when I say
no. I mean, build a product that has more appeal to the masses is what I.
But is it so? Is this the build a better mousetrap argument? Like
what do you mean?
What does that mean?
The saying "build a better mousetrap" and they'll beat a path to your door.
I do not.
No.
You don't know that?
No.
Paul, do you know that?
I've heard it.
This is This is not a kimono.
Are we parting the kimono now?
Okay.
Oh,
shit. Not
shit.
a moment. The saying is, if you build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. Meaning that, like, I don't remember who said it, but it was an inventor in the, maybe turn of the 20th century. And the idea is, if you build a better product, the marketing will happen, which is complete fucking horseshit because marketing is half the goddamn battle. Right? Like you can't, like, this is the fallacy of like the woodworker in their shop looking out over the cherry tree as the sun sets. And he's just, toiling away with a hand plane. Like, nobody gives a fuck. To Jack's point, nobody's paying you to have a shop overlooking a cherry tree and a sunset. Like, nobody cares. Your job is to make a product. Yeah. But yes, you care because that's the life that you live. But the people who are paying you to make an object don't give a shit what your shop looks like. Mm-hmm. They care about the thing that they're going to interact with, which is why, like, people still pay like Damien Hirst, even though he's a fucking asshole. I
hope he hears this.
All right, but come on. Let's not get caught up in the defining a better product, but building better shit does allow you to raise your price point. Come on. It does.
I would say
it does.
Yes. Yeah, sure, in general. But for me, I don't know if I would have said like better per se, but I knew my clients more. So I specifically changed my design style to fit a specific kind of client.
And that's smart.
For me,
smart.
Is that smart?
No, it depends what your goals are.
Well, I mean, I wanted to explore that kind of style. Like, my stuff right now is pretty contemporary. California loves that stuff. That is 100% what's in interior design. Like, that clientele, it worked. So, I mean, in Philly, it might be different. I don't know.
But do you love making it?
Commissions right now. Yeah, I loved it.
Okay.
I love exploring different styles. And right now, I'm stuck in one kind. But I don't know. I'm also open to exploring different styles. It's just, I think that was something that I recognized, that if I wanted to take on more commission work, that was a very easy avenue for me to do, because I expand my portfolio to say, like, look, this is all stuff that kind of matches your aesthetic. You should buy from me. But right now, I don't know. Oh,
this brings up a point that Jack brought up, which is, do you increase price point by building things that are trendy? Jack, that was one of your points you brought up.
How much can you get for a river table?
I knew you were going to say river table, and I'm so excited that you did. I'm so excited that you did. I mean, no shade on people who make river tables, I guess, maybe sort of kind of no shade.
There's a lot of shade on this
There's
podcast.
a lot of shade.
Yeah.
Okay. Total shade.
No, we're
on people who
growing
make river tables.
fucking oak trees on this podcast.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that there are two questions here that are interrelated. And Mary, I hope you didn't take any offense to me being like, is that smart? Because we're coming from two different paradigms, I think. Like in the world of fine art, if you change something, if you change your style to suit what you think potential clients might be, you're an absolute sellout, right? And such is not necessarily the case in craft. But I think there's a fine line, even, and again, the art versus craft thing, we could go on that all day.
Or design. Mary's thinking
Yeah.
design. Like
Yeah.
I needed to fit their space.
Right.
Like she's trying to solve their problem. Mary, am I speaking for you correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So if you, if you are making things that are trendy, I mean, if you enjoy making them, I guess it's fine, but trends come and go. And I think that one thing is certain, whether it's art, design, craft, if you want to have a dedicated clientele, you have to have a dedicated style. If you are constantly changing your style, even if it's for the sake of, discovering something new or evolving, at some point it will just look like you're addicted to novelty if you do it too much. People need to be able to know what they can get from you, what to expect from you.
Addicted to novelty.
Oh my God, Jack, stop it.
She's just out here. We have so many names for this episode right now.
Oh my God, you had me. Because like I change my shit all the time because I'm constantly learning and I want to try this and I want to try that. But people say I have an overlying style.
Well, so
I guess...
yes, and that's a thing that
I would
is
agree.
fascinating to me. This piece I'm currently making, Annalise and Larissa have both at separate points in separate conversations just been like, "Oh, it's such an Erik piece." And I'm like, what is it about it? Like, I don't know what it is about this thing that you're identifying as like, this is a stylistic choice that I employ often.
There's a really fine line. Yeah. There's a really fine line here. You want people to say, oh, of course that was made by Eric Curtis. But you don't want people to say, oh, of course Eric Curtis made that. There is a difference.
Wow.
You want to be able to keep your style fresh by introducing small evolutions of style, small evolutions of new techniques, but don't go whole hog into, fucking river tables or something. Please don't do that. I will lose all my faith in humanity.
I am going to make a river table for you,
Please,
Jack. Jack, there's only one person
three river tables on our way to you.
No, please.
There's only one person here who has made a river table that I know of.
Who? Is it Erik?
Listen,
It's
I
you.
put a boat.
Is it you,
I put a
Paul?
boat in it.
What? Okay, we're gonna go way off topic here again.
Here's the thing.
Okay.
Here's
oh
the
my
thing.
God. We're Erik.
All right. We can come back. That's another after show topic.
Okay.
Here's what I want to do real quick because I like the idea of asking how do we increase our price as we get better, but we haven't given any practical application whatsoever. So, rather than like dancing around like, as you get better, you should ask for more money. Here's what I do. This is a very practical thing. I've done it multiple times. I make a piece. I go, okay, that's pretty good. I'm never going to make that same piece for another client, right? But clients do often see a piece and they go, I want you to make that. And I go, no, but I will make you something very similar. And they go, great. How much is it? And I charge twice as much as the last table.
That is bold, and I love it.
That's called the fuck it price.
It is because I've already explored that idea and I don't want to like if I have to get back into that headspace to figure out what new thing I can explore, then it's going to be twice as much. But also, I also know that like number one, there's a point of diminishing returns like that can't continue to compound at that rate. But also I have for a large chunk of my career undercharged. So like that's just an easy way for me to be like, okay, last time I severely undercharged. If I double it, I feel like not only am I probably going to get closer to where it should be, but also like I'm better than I was 3 years ago when I made that piece. So I should be charging more money.
I think there's a really important observation here is that one way to increase the price point of what you sell is to increase the fucking price and just do it. But the important thing here, and I think Mary understands this all too well from architecture as well. sometimes the more elite something is perceived to be via its price, the more people
All
want
the
it.
time.
You're sighing, and I know I hate it too, but it is the case.
That psychology hurts me, but
It
it's
hurts
true.
me too. It really is. I have more clients now that I charge $175 an hour than I did when I charged $100 an hour, and I'm enjoying the work more. And I think that the thing that thing has to hold true as well for people who are working in art, craft, and design. If you want to make more money, put a higher price on it. People will buy it. You will find the right audience for it.
If and this is a major asterisk, if you're good at what you do.
If it holds,
you know what I mean?
Major asterisk.
Like that is because what happens so often is in like, I think we're all guilty of this at some point early on in our career. We're not good enough to see what we're not good at, but we have enough experience to know that we're better than we used to be. So we think, oh, let me just charge $175 an hour, and then people laugh in your face at a craft show. You know,
but you learn, right? And then you come back down a little bit. You know, it's I think there's a back and forth there.
You go, oh, my sack. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I sacked up too hard.
I sacked too hard.
He parted the kimono and the sack was too large. Yeah, that's a real problem, Eric. So we all right. We've talked about. Let's recap because we've covered a lot of ground. Better marketing, bigger audience. Doesn't matter where. Yes, it matters where. Do make a better product or a different type of product that sells at a higher price point. Just sack up and charge more, and that falls under the guise of talk to your friends. Like I was talking to Keith Johnson today, and I'm like, "How did you get to charging more?" He's like, "I don't know. I just talked to my friends, and they told me to do it." And that's basically what Jack is saying. Just fucking charge more. Like you're undercharging. Change it. Okay. It's that simple. Now, there's a few other smaller pieces that I'd like to touch on briefly, which we haven't, which is scale. How big is the piece? Little things versus large things, or valuable materials being integrated.
Yeah, both of those things matter hugely.
I have noticed artists who do things at very large scale seem to ask a lot of money because the scale introduces logistical issues and material issues that inhibit most people from even trying it.
Logistical issues for sure, but I think there's also there's an awe factor there that doesn't exist. Like there's a
it's an impression.
It's like seeing a model of a cathedral and walking into a cathedral,
right?
Like you're like, this is super cool when it's this big, and then when it's Notre Dame, you're like, how the fuck did they do this? Right? There is a raw, awe-inspiring factor to it. Go ahead.
So scale, absolutely, Eric. Like in person, you feel the scale issue. So if you see it in front of you, a big piece of sculpture or whatever it is, like sure. But also better materials. Like one of my engraving mentors, Jeff Park, uses like 24 karat gold, 18 karat gold, and he mixes it with copper and brass and silver, and he inlays all these precious gems, and like that increases vastly the price point of what he can ask because it's loaded with gold and diamonds.
That's wild.
Yes,
I build with pure gold.
Yeah. What if we did a gold river table?
Wait.
Ship it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like the reality
but for us, it would be highly figured woods. That would be the equivalent for us.
Yeah. And the reality is like, yes, those very expensive materials, regardless of what media they exist in, like those increase the value linearly of a piece. But the person who has the skill to manipulate those highly valuable materials increases the value exponentially.
That's the caveat. That's the asterisk that I wanted to add, because it's like I can imagine some people who are listening right now are going, oh, okay, I'm gonna go like get some, I don't know, ebony or something and make some. If you don't have the skill, if you don't have the skill to apply to the materials or the scale, it's going to flop. I mean, one of the first things that I always teach my students is start working with humble materials and scale. And there's an important reason for that. If you're working with shit that's too precious, then you're not going to experiment. You're not going to push the boundary. You're not going to go further because everything feels so dang precious, right?
Yep.
But so if you have the skill, yeah, add the precious material and it means something. Add the scale and it can mean something if people want it. But without the
That's
skill,
cool.
it doesn't matter.
Good
Yeah,
point.
this is the figured wood argument, right?
It is.
Like, that's what that is.
And Jack, what do you think, because we started the episode about prints, what do you think about scarcity increasing price point? Like if you're saying this is a limited edition, only 5 exist. What do you think about that?
There's a reason that people think of painting as a primary art form and printmaking is something that painters also do. Instead of being a thing in its own right, which, I mean, that's a whole other, podcast episode for a different podcast that's not about woodworking. It's super frustrating. I think that I think that you guys don't suffer the same way that I suffer there because people sort of know that prints, like hand-pulled prints, even copper etchings, I make super detailed copper etchings and woodblock carvings, but people know that I have one matrix, that piece of copper, that piece of wood's called a matrix. I have one, and then I pull multiple sheets of paper, multiple prints from that one thing. When you guys make an edition of something, you are making 3 completely separate things, right? With no matrix to just like copy off of as easily. So scarcity means something different for you guys than it means for me. But at the same time, if I know that there are 3 of something exactly the same, it's not going to feel quite as precious to me as if I know that there's only one of them, whether it was made by commission or not.
I'm trying to figure, like, I hear what you're saying, that the process of making multiples is different for us because just the nature of the materials. But there's something in me, I'm debating with the idea that most people who walk, we'll put ourselves in a craft show, because I was just at the PMA, and people walk into these booths and they see these pieces of furniture, and most of them that are at a furniture show like that, not all, but most, are production pieces, but they're high-end production pieces. And most people who walk into that booth can't tell if that's the only object like that that's ever been made, or if it's a production piece. And I think what that does is it raises the value of the production piece and lowers the value of the one-off pieces. So we have this weird thing of like, people know that prints are made in multiples. They just know that inherently. And that obviously has its cons for you. In our world, when you're surrounded, like if there are 3 booths of woodworkers and somebody walks into one guy's booth and they go, well, this is a one of a kind table because this piece of wood is the only piece of wood that's ever existed like that, but it's a production piece. And then they walk into my booth next door and I'm charging 3 times as much because I go, I've only ever made this table once. They're like, well, what? That's what that guy just said too.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe none of us is rich enough to be in the right mindset to answer these questions, because I know that rich people inherently think differently, right? Like my husband is an architect, and he had a client who said to him, Greg, anyone can build a $10 million mountain house. How are you going to make mine special?
Right. I love this guy's voice, and I want you to do the rest of the episode in that voice.
You have to speak, Jack. You have to speak in that voice the rest of the talk.
I can't do it. I'm so sorry.
If you could put a monocle on for me, that would be ideal.
Yeah, exactly. But there are people out there who will say, well, how many of these have you made? Wow.
Sure.
Could I have you? I love this production piece that you have, but I want it customized with some inlay. Could you put some inlay on this? And they ask for modifications of things you've already made, and none of us is fucking rich enough to think like that. And I don't know that there aren't that many people like that, so I don't think that we have to cater to selling to them. We can raise our price points in other ways rather than at the very highest echelon of the price spectrum.
All right. So I think we're running long in the tooth. We still have another segment, which is what are the ethics and morality of raising price point. But before we do, I want to review some of the things we've talked about raising price point. Better marketing, where you're selling, make a better thing, suck up. Sack up,
sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say suck up.
Well, that was separate. Sack up and charge more, and maybe talking to your friends will convince you of that. Scale, size does play with this. Materials used does play with this. Whether you make things that are trendy or not is a decision whether you enjoy making those things or not. Scarcity, do you make it a limited edition? Do you customize it for the customer? Obviously, customizing costs more money. If you monogram it or make it exactly to their specifications, you know you can raise the price point. In fact, some of the boxes I've made the price point has doubled because of certain modifications that the customer asked for. And one last thing, collaboration. Often, if you collaborate with someone who has a very large audience and a social media audience, and you collaborate on a piece together, and you both cross-post the hell out of it, you're suddenly introduced to 50,000 people who never saw you before. Duh. Who wouldn't want to do that? Like, it doesn't take a genius to know that that is good for you in terms of marketing and introducing yourself instantly to a whole host of new buyers. So
Eric's
friends,
now worried that he's going to get a lot of
Well,
messages
it's
of like,
all
hey,
right. So I do want
to
to put one asterisk on that,
please,
which
asterisk
is
away.
like people, and I'm not saying this from me, like I'm just saying in general, people know when you want to collaborate with them because it would be a really fun time and experience, and you can learn and grow and be friends
or
together,
they're trying to use
versus
you.
when you're
Yeah.
trying to use their audience, right?
Yes.
So
right.
that is a thing. Like, just listen, we've said it before on this podcast, we'll say it again, just don't be a dick,
Yeah. I mean, have authentic, desire to collaborate. And by the way, if it introduces you to their audience, wonderful, obviously. Asterisk, man. So Eric, now that you and I are already in the adversarial roles, I thought maybe we could transition to Wib's Debate Club. That is, woodworking is bullshit.
trying to come up with a theme song. Yeah.
Wibby debate.
I feel like you should do it in your southern accent, though.
Yes.
That was
Jack.
Eric, that was Karma Chameleon by Culture Club, what you just fucking sang.
No, I know.
Copyright issues.
I'm aware.
That was terrible. Okay.
You're welcome.
So we thought we would have an episode of Wib's Debate Club. And the question is, well, we talked about all the ways you can increase price point. Should you? Are there any moral or ethical considerations with charging rich people more? Do you charge rich people more? Yes or no? What about non-rich people? People who, just average, middle America. Do you charge them more? What about raising price point? What if your whole customer base is nothing but people with tons of disposable income? Does that present a moral or ethical dilemma to you? So the way we're going to run Wib's Debate Club is Eric's bad cop. Yes.
You son of a bitch.
Eric is bad cop.
I want to put another asterisk on here and say everything I'm about to say is not the opinion of me or this podcast.
To be honest, I don't necessarily think it's bad cop in this scenario.
Oh, you just wait till
maybe
I say
Mary
it.
is bad cop.
Oh, well,
I think Mary is the closest to a sociopath out of the four of us. So.
Okay, Mary is truly bad cop, and I will play good cop. And Eric and I do not necessarily hold these positions. We're just pretending.
I now regret saying that because I don't know your perspective that you're going to be taking.
Okay, Eric, are there any moral or ethical considerations about raising price point? Please present your first argument why not.
Paul, do you have a family?
I do at
You
the
have a
moment,
wife?
yes.
Yeah, you have a child. You have a house.
Uh-huh.
Do you like food? Do you like eating? How's healthcare in this country right now? How are we doing with that? How's our social safety net? Is it doing pretty great?
The eggs.
So how are the eggs? You pay $60 an egg? So
$60.
Here's the thing. You have developed a skill set. I have developed a skill set over years, decades, to the point where we are exceptional at our craft. We are masters of our design. We are masters of the material that we work in, and we know how to market ourselves. And the reality is, I have a mortgage to pay at the end of the month, and I need some rich people to understand that they need to support the fucking craft, and it takes me hours upon hours to make an object. And so I don't have an issue raising the price point for somebody who has that type of expendable income when there are people who don't have that type of expendable income who also deserve to have beautiful objects. And I am of the opinion, Bernie Sanders style, that the rich people need to pull their fucking weight in this country so that we can actually make beautiful objects.
Oh,
Vermont,
wow.
Vermont represent.
Take it easy, 55-year-old Mike Tyson or whatever the hell he was.
He's 58, and that was sad. Carry on.
Okay, yeah, you're rich, right? Rich people, yeah. How did they get rich? By taking from the environment indiscriminately, polluting our natural resources to their betterment of their.
So far, you're making my point.
And by the way, let me ask this: do you like breathing? Do you like
sometimes.
Do you like not suffocating? Sometimes. Let's not get into that.
Whoa. I don't know you guys that well yet.
If you like breathing, Eric, you would realize that in particular for our particular form of art, and maybe, Jack obviously is doing it different, but for us in particular, wood is a natural resource. And we like to pretend that it belongs to you. It belongs to me. It's on my land. Where'd you get that land? You probably stole it from some indigenous person, a century or two ago. But let's say that's the case. So it's on your land, but it contributes oxygen to the entire envirosphere. Yeah. We're all breathing it, but you're going to cut it down. It's my wood, and I'm going to charge so much for it that only the richest people can enjoy what came of that natural resource that belongs to all of us, motherfucker. So, I think there is a moment to just say, maybe we should make some things that are not accessible to only the super wealthy.
That's a fair point, Paul. I see where you're going with that. Let me ask you this.
Oh my God.
That tree that you just cut down? It's one of one, baby. It's one of one. So you're going to tell me that the fields of New Zealand pine that they're raking and just chopping up and throwing in the Home Depot slab section, just turning into 2x4s, that's equally as valuable as that bit of curly claro walnut that you just chopped down on Brother Hemsworth's tree out on his field? And you're going to just slab that up and just sell it for $250 for a 2x4 because you believe in some kind of social structure that just devalues all meaning. How are you going to charge anything for your work if you think that the one species is the same as the next species, that this board is as equal as that board, that Jack, who's been making things for 20 years, is no more or less valuable than fucking Joe Schmo, who just started making cutting boards last week? How are you going to price that out, brother?
I'm sorry. Last time I checked, all trees produce roughly the same oxygen potential. I don't really know. I'll have to look
What
that
does
up.
oxygen have to do? We're talking about resources,
anyway,
baby.
Speaking of resources, have you noticed how much an egg costs? At least in our house, it costs $60 because I raised them from chickens myself. But have you noticed how prices have gone lately, you motherfucker? People don't have a ton of expendable income.
Which is exactly why rich people should support us so that we can then allow more beautiful objects to be in the hands of people who don't have that expendable income.
Yes. I'm sure your little trickle-down economics theory is going to work out wonderfully. But the truth is, and many people have written this, whether it's Plato, that everyone needs art in their life to be better themselves and form a better society. And by you pricing it so fucking high that no one can afford it, you're really cutting 80%, 90, 95% of society out of owning beautiful objects made by experienced artists. Okay, enough of this. Oh my God, Eric.
See that? He was losing, so he tapped out. This man was like Mike Tyson on the ropes out here.
It's so hard.
I think that makes me Logan Paul, though, so I take that back.
It's so hard taking one side only, right? Because I always see multiple sides. Okay, Jack, Mary, how do you feel about some of the points that were raised? Do you want to react to any of them?
I think that you can have it both ways. Like, I own a table that Keith Johnson made. I only have that table because he gave it to me, not because I could pay for it. But I also have these tiny little spoons made by another woodworker, these little teaspoons. And I use them every day, and they are so incredibly precious to me and so heirloom. And, I think that Keith said that table, if I had to purchase it, would have been like maybe $4,500 or something like that. Um, but the spoon was $3, and I bought several of them. And I find them just as precious as that table that Keith gave me. Keith, don't be offended by that if you're listening.
Keith, in fact, Keith told me about that table today when I was talking to him. He's like,
yeah.
"Oh yeah, I gave her a table after we recorded the instruction. What was it called?
For Teachable.
Teachable.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what,
yeah. But so I think that we don't have to choose, right? Like we can make gorgeous tables with mitered dovetails or whatever the hell, fancy insert fancy term here. But then we can also like make tiny little spoons, and we don't have to choose. We can support people who are at both ends of the spectrum of art by buying ability while also supporting ourselves.
Do you market at multiple price points? All four of us. Have you made things that cross many price points?
Yes.
Yeah. Not the same object at different prices ever, but different objects at different prices.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
So I haven't made small batch runs of things in a long time. And what I've taken to doing recently is I'll still make small objects. And those objects I try to sell to, the people on Instagram or my patrons for far less than I would like at a craft show, something that feels affordable. And it's still a one-off object, but those are playthings, and I'm not worried about what like people deserve to have beautiful objects, and that is a throwaway object for me. So that's a thing that like, what can you afford kind of thing, that was a thing that I this might be apocryphal, but I've always kind of held on to it as like a goal in life is Sam Maloof towards the end of his career, once he was Sam Maloof and was charging, tens of thousands of dollars per rocking chair, would always leave kind of like one slot open of like the whatever you can afford to pay me kind of thing. And, that person could pay whatever they had and he would make that chair. And then, next year he would do another one for somebody. So that like concept of I have enough, and this is the small way in which that I can recontribute, whatever that way looks like for you, I think is an important thing to maintain.
So I think all of us gave the answer. The answer is yes. Like me, I definitely sell, boxes throughout the year that are high priced, but then once a year, I don't know why, and it always falls around the holidays, around October, November, I get this little thing in my belly, like I have all this wood, all this natural resource that used to produce oxygen, Eric, and and I feel like I need to put it in the hands of more people. And how can I do that? How can I make something quick that can get a lot of beautiful stuff out to a lot of people, and it doesn't trash their finances? You know what I mean? And that happens to me every year. And this year I'm doing the same. And sure, I'm not making much money on it. And every day I do it, I think this will make a lot of people happy. And is that stupid? Is that smart? It depends on your financial situation. I'm a scientist. Yeah. I have a job. I have a job. It pays my bills. So I can afford to like take a moment and be like, okay, this will make a lot of people happy. Great. I'll do it.
There's also, not for nothing, there's also the opposite approach, which is around this time of year, a lot of people are making things for that same reason. Go to a craft show, go to an art show, and have a budget, like whatever your reasonable budget is. Hey, I've got $200 to spend on 3 gifts for family and friends, and support people who are making things,
I like it. All right, kids. Well, that's 1 hour and 8 minutes. Boy, that went fast. And I feel like we skirted a bunch of issues, but there's more waiting for us. Christmas Creep.
Speaking of the holidays, baby, for the actor show, we talking to Christmas Creep.
Eric has.
What I want to know is, what have you guys made? Like, we've all made things to sell around the holidays in the past. What have you made that you were like, this thing is gonna fucking slay, and it tanked? It tanked so hard.
Jack is covering her face, by the way, for a minute there.
I don't want to talk about it.
We're going to talk about it, but it's going to be in the after show. So thanks everyone, for tuning in today. Jack, thank you so much for the salient points you brought up today. I will definitely be re-listening to the show and thinking through some of the points you raised, because I can't absorb it all on the fly in the moment. I often listen back to the show and like reflect upon it. I'm sure, Mary, you listen to the show after we record it too?
Yeah, totally.
By the way, Mary hates hearing her own voice. That's why I asked.
She loves it.
But Jack, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And for those of you who want to hear more, we have the Christmas Creep. And
wait. We got to tell people about her
military school background.
Oh
no.
Oh,
her survey, her thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. That's only after show. Christmas Creep and Jack's foray into military
background.
That didn't work out. But Jack, tell people what you're working on now, please.
Okay, sure. So in 2022, I published a book called Artist Therapy: 26 Secrets for Studio Success. And it's based on this like studio manual from when I taught at Georgia State University. My students felt like it was really valuable. It had kind of a cult following. They made these like unauthorized zines of it and traded it with all their friends and stuff like that.
Nice.
So, when teenagers are poaching your shit, very flattering, obviously good stuff. High praise, right? So I published the book. The book has, some attention on it, not as much as I would like because I suck at marketing. But I'm designing a year-long workshop that's based on the book. And I have a survey that you guys are, I guess, going to be awesome enough to share. Thank you for that. To see like what people think, to the point of what things should cost. How much do people think this should cost for a year-long course that has professional quality videos? And, knowing that I design courses for folks like Keith at Teachable and things like that. Not at Teachable anymore, but so I want to get people's feedback on that because to your point, Paul, like I do have the means to not have to charge out the wazoo for this. I can charge something that's fair. And so I want to know what that is. So that's what that survey is about.
All right.
Hell yeah.
I'll be interesting. 26 secrets? That's a lot of secrets.
It's a lot of secrets.
It's one for every letter of the alphabet, baby.
Well,
That's quick
math. You heard one of them in here. So one of them is listed in this episode.
Go to military school, I believe.
No. Decide not to.
Hold on.
One of them is sack up, right?
One of them is
sack up, definitely.
What is the book still available for people to purchase?
Yeah, the ebook is available. I have it on my website, jackthomas.art. The book has its own whole like subpage, webpage.
Let's go blow it up. Let's go make it a bestseller on Amazon.
Thanks, guys.
Jax, now's the time to double the price real quick.
100%. They'll never know.
It's a digital, but it's a digital thing. I don't have to work on it.
Triple the price. That sounds great to me.
There.
All right. Thanks again, Jack. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. We'll see you in the after show. For those of you who want to hear the after show, just subscribe to our Patreon. It's that easy. We'll see you next time.
Jingle, jingle, bitches. Christmas creep.
Bye.
Oh my God.
Bye.